Hey, what's happening? Welcome to Mates TV. So we're approaching the end of the 17 break between Liverpool's last game and Liverpool's next game as Premier League action resumes against Brighton. I want to talk a little bit about that in a minute, but just to kind of wrap up this international break, slash enforced break from football, Queen-related break from football. I want to talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold. I want to talk about Gareth Southgate, and obviously it ends up being the big talking point for England and probably of English football throughout this period. Southgate's almost seemingly going out of his way to let the world know that he just doesn't seem to fancy Trent, which is weird. Like, if it was in the schoolyard, would he be pushing him down and pulling on his hair and trying to put worms in his shoes? I don't know. Like, there would be something suspect there if this was at school level, because, like, look, as much as there seems to be this growing narrative to be like, well, Trent can't defend, which is bollocks, by the way. It's totally bollocks. People just love a bit of banter. They love a bit of an argument, and all that, don't they? There is no doubt. It is like beyond question that Trent is a generationally talented, world-class footballer, redefining the role that he plays each and every week. The levels that he's reached at the tender age that he is means that he is head and shoulders above the candidates for positions in the England team. Every position. He's better than every... He's literally... Yeah, look, Harry Kane is a sensational striker, and maybe that's... I could maybe make that case alongside him, but he's up there. If Trent and Harry Kane are probably the two best English footballers. Maybe Phil Foden will come along there. I know a lot of people love Jack Grealish, but in terms of what they've done, and Trent's done well more in the game than Harry Kane, by the way. Harry Kane's got a lot of goals. He's a very, very good goal scorer. But Trent had, more Ballon d'Or nominations and team of the season appearances than the entire England squad put together. He's played in 3 Champions League finals. He's won 1. He's won the Premier League. He's won the FA Cup. He's won the League Cup. He's won the Super Cup. He's won the Charity Shield finally. He's won the World Cup Championship. He's 23. He's 24. He's heading into his prime years. He's heading into the archetypally best years of a player's career, and he's done everything already. At this stage of Steven Gerrard's career, and I understand different players, different positions, different eras now, but we're approaching, at that age, at 24, you're approaching the years where Gerrard goes to Istanbul and he becomes the best midfielder on the planet. And Gerrard, that was a progression for him. Trent Alexander-Arnold's been the best right back in world football for 3 seasons now? 4? Let's say 3, just to try and not feel like we're going over the top on it. But 18, 19, 19, 20, 20, 21, 21, 22. And albeit it's not a great season in 2021, it's overstated again and again, overstated because of Gareth Southgate's approach to talking about Trent Alexander-Arnold. He talked about him then, about leaving him out, he wasn't in the best form. He starts the season injured, he gets COVID. Liverpool absolutely fall off a cliff because of defensive injuries. And when they start to turn the corner again, Trent's one of the players trying to drag Liverpool forward, trying to get them back into it. And at times, that's often Trent Alexander-Arnold's downfall is, and we've seen this a bit this season, he loves Liverpool so much. He is a captain on the pitch. He's a future captain of Liverpool. But it's very hard to grab the game by the scruff of the neck from right back particularly because of how good he is at actually creating things for other people. He would love to be the guy who strides forward and scores the winning goal. He would love to be able to have more Gerrard moments, but sometimes, unfortunately, because of where he plays on the pitch, and this is, I think, where this misunderstanding comes of who he is as a footballer and his defensive abilities, because of how he's tasked with playing and his role. You can't. You're not supposed to be able to be that creative from fullback. So that's why Trent is a freak, a special, wonderful, freakish, incredible footballer, which is getting taken for granted. But certainly to be a guy who runs the game from right back in that all-action David Beckham, Greece for England, Steven Gerrard, Istanbul, FA Cup final 2006, and countless other times over the years. It's very difficult to do that from right back because you do have a positional requirement, you know, to actually be a fella who does get back and do the same share of dirty work. But when Liverpool are struggling, Trent takes it personally, and maybe that's one of the criticisms, is maybe he does think front foot first. But broadly, and on a week-to-week basis, he's meant to think front foot. Wow, it's easy for me to say. He's meant to think front foot first. There we go, nailed it. Because you can't get the type of creative output that Trent Alexander-Arnold does if you don't think front foot first. Yes, this is not... Look, if Liverpool wanted a right back to defend and be really solid and, you know, good pace and have a good engine to get up and down, they've kept Nathaniel Clyne. He was a fantastic right back. Still think he was criminally underrated. Never quite the same when he came back from his back injury. But he showed even at a random game a couple of seasons ago when he comes in against Manchester United. It's great. And he's obviously doing a decent job at Crystal Palace. But he was an England calibre and an England international right back. And no one even... But I think Adam Wan-Bissaka, we're not that many seasons removed from people like, well, Adam Wan-Bissaka, you know what, Trent Alexander-Arnold, step outside, son, come and talk to Adam Wan-Bissaka. Is he going to talk to him about how he only tackles when he doesn't need to and doesn't get assists and can't basically do anything but get a nosebleed when he gets into the final third? Because Trent will talk to Adam Wan-Bissaka about that all day long, and Adam Wan-Bissaka will be a savant when it comes to that. He is an absolute expert on all of those subjects, but when it comes to being a brilliant generational position redefining right back in the mould of the great right backs ever to play the game and beyond, Wan-Bissaka, as we all know now in the fullness of time, I can't really match that kind of conversation. It would be like me having a chat with a PhD who works on the Hadron Collider. There's probably a degree to which we're humans. If he's got it, are you a man? Great. You've got a penis. Boss week standing up, isn't it? Isn't that great? But that's about as much in common as we're going to have in terms of conversation. Everything he's got is going to be levels above what I'm able to comprehend. And that is what Trent Alexander-Arnold's like to the vast majority of right back in current football and in the history of playing in right back. In fact, when you mention names of great right backs, you're starting to talk about him alongside Dani Alves and Cafu. You don't talk about him alongside Gary Neville and, unfortunately, Nathaniel Clyne. You don't. It's beyond. That's the same reason we don't talk about Damien Plessis in the same breath as we talk about Claude Makelele, because Claude Makelele redefined the defensive midfield role. Effectively gets it named after him, and nobody doubts what he had to offer. And I do wonder this sometimes with someone like Trent, is that the media spotlight, the glare that he's under, being a Scouser doesn't help. Being for Liverpool at times doesn't help because there are people who naturally don't like that. Being in an era where there are tons of actually really handy English right backs. I think Reece James is terrific, by the way. I think Kieran Trippier is terrific. I think Tariq Lamptey, terrific. There's loads. Like every club seeming has. I don't think Aaron Wan-Bissaka is bad. I'm exaggerating for comedic effect. He's an absolutely fine right back. He's got lots of the attributes that if he'd come through 10 years ago, he would be stellar. An absolutely stellar operator at right back. It's a bit like the Harry Maguire thing. Harry Maguire, very good centre half. But by comparison to the levels, and the levels are being set, defensive, like centre half levels are being redefined by how good Virgil van Dijk is, goalkeeping levels being redefined by how good Alisson Becker is, and right back levels are being redefined by how good Trent Alexander-Arnold is. Doesn't mean anyone below that is not brilliant or really good or better than you or I will ever be. But there are some players that are just above all that, whether it's just natural or it's natural plus endeavour. They're just better. And one person who doesn't seem to be that in what they do, for me, is Gareth Southgate. Lovely fella. I think the way that he's turned England around and the fact that they had a coherent plan, got behind him. He clearly has an approach, and it's an approach that's, well, it's not yielded results as such, but look, this England, the team that he's had over the last two tournaments, better than any England I ever watched. And, you know, back in the day, I used to actually care a bit about England when I was a kid coming up, you know, not heartbreaking in the same way that England used to be, not like Euro 96 heartbreak or France 98 heartbreak or the tiresome heartbreaks of 2002 and 2004 when they do the same old shite again and again. Somebody becomes the national villain for a bit and England go out on pens or in extra time. But Southgate, look, I think he's commendable. I think he's very commendable, but I think he's limited, and I think he knows he's limited, and this is why I can understand his decision to not start Trent. I can understand his decision to not even want him in the squad, because I don't think... Look, Liverpool play 4 at the back nominally. Trent doesn't play as a traditional in a flat back 4. Of course, he does play very advanced. But he doesn't play as a wing back. But I would argue that if you play him as a wing back, you've got 3 defenders, naturally 3 defenders. Liverpool have to make up 3 defenders with either one of their midfielders dropping in, so Jordan Henderson might drop in and cover in behind, or Fabinho will drop in and it makes a back 3. England have got 3 there straight away, and often they're playing a 2 holding-ish midfielders in there as well who've got the capability to defend. So you potentially be unlocking Trent even more to put him in right wing back in England's team. But where I'm leading with this is, I understand Reece James. He's a very straightforward fullback. I think he's a straightforward fullback the way that Andy Robertson's a straightforward fullback. Brilliantly talented, great pace, great energy. He's good in the final third, if not like again, he makes the most out of what he's got. I think Robertson's a bit of a percentage player when he gets into the final third. He knows he gets into the right positions and he puts the right type of balls into the right type of areas, but it's not pinpoint the way that Trent is. Trent is far more Beckham-esque in what he does. He's a genius when it comes to where he puts the ball. That's why the only person who's more creative in the last 5 seasons than him in the Premier League is Kevin De Bruyne. You know, he's about Kevin De Bruyne and Mo Salah as the other creative players, both forward attacking players. Trent again, nominally a fullback. I get the Reece James thing. It makes it, I think you can just plug a Reece James into a right wing back position and you don't need to do tons of tactical work with him because he'll just understand it and people understand him and where he's going to be. And I think Trippier is maybe a halfway house between that. He's a bit more experienced. Maybe he's going to be a bit more malleable in terms of where he's at. Look, he's at Newcastle. He's on the tail end of his career. He can also do the left-hand side job as well, which we've never really seen Trent Alexander-Arnold do, of course. So there's a bit of versatility there. And I've just been like again, this isn't apropos of nothing. Once again, I've got something to show. I've been on the score comparison matrix, gone through the pair 90s this season, which, look, it's been a disappointing, and I don't think anyone could say Trent's been at the peak of his powers this year. He has underperformed. I think that's almost without a doubt as well. Even if this defensive thing is still being overstated, his creative side has been a little bit underwhelming, and how much he's given the ball away, etc., etc. But actually, I was surprised by Kieran Trippier's stats, to be perfectly honest. Look, Trent's still getting more touches of the ball than Reece James and Kieran Trippier per 90 because he's so much more central to how our team plays than those other 2 lads are. They're more functional players in that regard. Trent loses possession more, but again, he's the kind of player who tries more, and therefore that's the kind of thing that happens. But he creates more chances and attempts more passes per 90 than both of those players. Again, he's a playmaker in Liverpool's side. There's sort of like a you don't try, you don't shoot, you don't score sort of mentality. You get a higher risk value when you've got more of the ball, you're having more touch of the ball, you're playing more passes. There's more opportunity for that to go wrong than there is with the others. But like Kieran Trippier, very all-round stats, more solid defensively than I would have thought. And in terms of his actual creativity, doesn't lose possession loads, creates a decent amount of chances, second most chances per 90 created, ahead of Reece James, but behind Trent Alexander-Arnold. My point in this is that he's another bit more of a straightforward football, and I think, and where I'm coming around to, I don't think Gareth Southgate is a good enough manager or has enough time on the training ground to be able to play Trent the way that Liverpool play him, and that's fine. But to then come out and talk about his form and to talk about how rounded other players are as footballers, almost in comparison to him, sometimes it's what you say and sometimes what you don't say, is mad. It's just mad, and I don't know, sometimes maybe there's just something to saying. I think Trent is phenomenal, but he doesn't fit what I'm looking to do. And I think everyone will go, well, that's a bit shit, mate, because you should be making someone like that work because he's so good. They're making Harry Kane work. They dragged Harry Kane through at times when, has he really been that golden boot star that he's been in the Premier League for Tottenham, for England? No, they're making Harry Kane fit because he's doing more of a guy who wins free kicks and takes penalties and falls on the floor when you need to, and and holds the ball up and all that kind of stuff. I'm not here to denigrate Harry Kane, he's terrific, but he's making allowances for worse footballers, make allowances for brilliant footballers, make it work. Build your team around the best. Kane's not going to go on forever. Trent's got 10 years at the highest level, maybe more. You know, it's not like he's got tons of pace to lose later on in his career, and he's got that vision, he's got that creativity. Baffling. It's baffling to me. I can empathise because of Southgate's limitations, and that's why I'll let him off the hook a touch, and ultimately because I don't really care. Because as a Liverpool fan, as I am, and I'm sure a lot of you are, I'd rather no Liverpool players play for England, because England's shit. Because all you do is get ridiculous scrutiny. You get built up, you do well, and the press builds you up, and all these random fans from Bath with their England bed sheets and shitty things scrawled on them in black ink. They laud you and they hold you up, wow, what a star, what a superstar, and then all of a sudden, one bad game, you're not flavour of the month anymore, and you've got the Daily Mail questioning how much money you spend on houses for your mum, and your tattoo choices, and your girlfriend choices, and your car choices, and then all of a sudden the general public who are morons and sheep fall behind right-wing gutter press and turn on you. I've seen it happen to Sterling, I've seen it happen to countless footballers over the years. I don't want that to happen to Liverpool players, so England can broadly get in the bin. I'm just a bit sad for Trent, because it might hamper his global reputation in the game, because international football matters to footballers, and it matters to European audiences and global audiences and people who judge footballers. In that regard, would we hold a lot of those footballers like, you know, Roberto Carlos's and Dani Alves's and Cafu's up if they weren't in the Brazil national team? Cafu, I would suggest, is probably better known as a Brazilian footballer. I mean, look, brilliant at Roma, brilliant at AC Milan, but are there maybe people who remember him more for that? Roberto Carlos, everyone knows he played for Real Madrid, but there's probably more people who think of him as a Brazilian left-back than whatever. So it's a bit of a shame of Trent's birth, almost, that we can't have a Scouse national team, because if we did, it would be Boss. And he would get to be the shining light and probably be held up. But look, Southgate won't go on forever. Eventually, someone will realise, hopefully. But if they don't, fuck them. Just be the best right back of all time for Liverpool, win everything, have an amazing career, be adored by your home team, your hometown, and fans across the globe. And let's get in the bin. What I will say, leading into the weekend's fixtures, it's a big opportunity for Trent coming forward, and for him and for a lot of the underperforming stars for Liverpool so far. There's no more excuses. What we've got is a straight run now until the World Cup. You get in the World Cup squad, great. If you don't get in the World Cup squad, great. You go on a warm weather training camp, you'll get to have a bit of a rest, and you'll be ready for the title challenge, hopefully, when January comes back and and the Premier League resumes, and Liverpool are in a position to kick on from there. If Trent's had the winter off, great, but what we want to see from now is put it to the back of your mind, and that goes for Trent, that goes for Fabinho, it goes for Virgil, it goes for, you know, Robertson when he gets back from injury, it goes for Jordan Henderson, it goes for Mohamed Salah, it goes for Darwin Núñez, it goes for Diaz, it goes for everyone, every single Liverpool player. And there's players who I don't think anyone's overperformed this season. I think some people have performed to the level, and far too many have underperformed. That needs to end now. And Trent can make a good example of that. If he can just basically stick his critics in the bin, you know what, and almost get beat to a position where you're like, well, make Southgate look a fool. Make him look a fool. Make all of the critics look like fools, because, you know, Liverpool collectively can get their act together, catch up to Manchester City, and when football comes back, they can put the foot to the floor once again. And I have every faith that this team, if they get this next month right, there's no reason why Liverpool won't be challenging for the biggest honours at the end of the campaign. And yet, all the detractors and all the people who went, Liverpool season's over, they can get straight into the bin. Let me know your thoughts on all of that in the comments underneath. Two things. Go and subscribe to Redmen TV if you haven't done. We're very close to 500,000 subscribers over on there. And if you want more football content in your lives, the 888 Sports crew are trying to determine the top 4 managers in the Premier League. I think, sneakily, 3rd or 4th best manager might be Graham Potter, but it will be determined by what happens this season. I'm going to play it out on a clip from that. Head over to that channel, leave that comment, say mate sent me as well. Drop a like on it and all that good stuff. But also like here, also subscribe here, and have an amazing week as well. Your boss, and hopefully the Reds will match how boss you are this weekend and beyond.
But is he really the 4th best manager in the Premier League? Is he really that?
I feel so.
I don't.
Who's better?
It's tricky, isn't it? Rob, what needs to happen this year for Arteta to be cemented 4th? Like, do you need to qualify for the European
Cup? I think he
Cup?
needs to get into the top 4.
And what happens if you don't?
I think serious questions have to be asked. I feel now with the squad, got to get us into the top four.
If you don't get top four for whatever reason this season, and I do think you will get top four, but if you don't, is that a sackable offence? Because that would be 2 seasons on the trot you will have bottled.
I think if you get, you're not about bottling.
You did.
Tottenham fan telling me about.
But you did bottle the end of last season.
I
You
mean,
did.
Jesus
You
Christ,
did.
what's the world come to?
Well, you did bottle it
Yeah?
last season.
I love you, Abby,
Don't
but you know what I
lie.
mean? A Tottenham fan telling me about
World come to.
Listen, he's under pressure to get top four. We missed out on a point by a point last season. Well, to be fair, at the start of the season, I thought we had no chance of getting top four. But this season, I'm looking at it and think we do have a good chance of getting it. Chelsea, new manager, Man United in transition as well.
I still think that Spurs will finish above Arsenal, but I do think both of us will end up in the top four.